Hardscape mentors the lesson. We in Buffalo mode, no time for second guessing. Built different, yeah, we follow one direction.
How can we not be excited after yesterday, right? The first ever design lab at Hardscape Mentor Studios. Super proud to have you be a part of it. What did you think of your experience yesterday?
Yeah, my experience was great. My favorite part of the event yesterday was just giving the guys so much information. When the guys are asking questions and they're answering my follow-up questions correct, like literally the whole crowd, that's just let me know that the information I'm giving them is valuable, even though they have been designing or they're looking to learn more. The information that I'm able to give them is valuable and they're taking it in. So that was really good to see.
Yeah, no, you touched on a lot of things, that the other speakers on stage, including myself, did not even touch. So appreciated that before. Like I said, when everyone in the crowd is taking pictures of your slides, you did your work there and you put out some information that they're interested in learning. So absolutely killed it. So we talked a little bit about what you did for contractors yesterday, but tell me a little bit about what you do for contractors, Craig. And I know you haven't been in it very long either, so super cool to see how you've taken off already.
Yeah, so I started in 2019. I walked out my job and I said, I would say I was in like a midlife crisis. I was like, man, I need to figure
midlife.
You're
young, boy.
I think I was about 27 or 28, and I was like, man, I need to figure something out. And I was like, what do I like doing? Well, I was like, okay, I like being outside, and I like landscaping and cutting grass and stuff. So I said, okay, I'm gonna just go with that. And I just need to figure out how to make money, how to make a living off of it. So I walked out my job. I started just cutting grass. That was like 2019, 2020. And then I met Cruise Line 2021 after I hired some guys, and he basically introduced me into the hardscape industry, so the pavers and things like that. So later down the line, mind you, each year I'm kind of jumping from one thing to another. So I never really had a chance to plant my feet into something. So I went from cutting grass one year to doing like landscaping inside the next year. And then the next year I went to hardscaping. And then the year after that, I went into designing and building. And then, which is this year, pretty much kind of last year, I started designing full time. So as I'm designing full time for clients, well, let's take it back to when I was a contractor. So I was really good at designing and selling, but I could sell these big jobs and I could sell these nice jobs and design them, but I could never find like the guys to build them. I didn't know how to hire. Like that in itself is an art, hiring the right guys to take this project from, just dirt to completion. And I could never just find the right guys. I used to go get my friends or get the guys from Home Depot and things like that. So it worked out. But then I just started hiring contractors to build it. So I was like, okay, how about, we didn't know how to do things like decks and pergolas and things. So I just started hiring those things out. So I said, you know what? I could just hire the whole job out. This was before I had like mentors and people telling me, that these things are possible. I'm just kind of figuring it out along the way. So after that, I just started designing and selling, giving it to contractors. And then some contractors will reach out and say, man, these designs look really good. Can you do a design for us? So I said, okay, I'll do some designs for you guys. And then it just started getting popular and the ball started kind of like a snowball effect. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it came up with the idea of designing for contractors. But that also went into selling these designs and selling a project for contractors, because I do it myself. If a client finds me, I sell the design and I do the design and I sell the project. So now I extend that to contractors.
So I guess I feel like you missed something there, because I can tell you like to draw. You have an artistic side that came from somewhere. Mm-hmm. So the fact you like to be outside, cut grass, all that is great, but you can draw, my man. Yeah. So where did that come from? So
the funny thing is, I used to always want to draw when I was a kid. Like I always wanted to draw, but I could never. I had a friend back when I was in like middle school. He could draw like really nice. I was like, man, I wish I could draw like that. He had all the cool colored pencils, the 64 pack of crayons and stuff like that. And he used to always draw in color. I was like, man, I wish I could draw like that, but I couldn't. Like I kept trying, but I couldn't. But I always had the thought in my mind of what I wanted. So just being creative has always been with me. So that played a major part. So when I walk into a backyard, my mind just starts, like I tell my clients, my mind is racing like 100 miles an hour. So I need you guys to give me some information to keep me here. You know what I'm saying? And so that's pretty much how we are able to be creative and design these nice backyards, because it's very creative.
I like how you said that, like, just, dial me in a little bit here. And that's the needs and wants from our client. That's what we're looking for there, because, and I feel like, I used the line down since day one. We can talk a little bit about, how we met and why we're still hanging out. But I feel like we have similar backgrounds, similar likes, and like in the artist side of thing and the drawing side of things. So you inspire me, because when I started Preston Hardscape Design, I wanted to be solely just a designer. I came from a company. I was a residential designer for 5 years. I went on my own. I was just going to draw, because that's literally my favorite thing to do, is when I'm sitting there and at SketchUp just drawing on my computer, like literally my favorite thing to do in life. And I wanted to do that full time. I could never find people to put my jobs in the ground either, right? But I don't know if it was, the wrong move compared to you, because my knees got more beat up. So I just went on the ground myself. But we had the same feeling in the starts of our thing. Like, I can draw the biggest, baddest thing. I can sell it. I know that. But now I got to find someone to put it in the ground. And I couldn't find anybody to put it in the ground, like, to my expectations. So I just started doing it myself. That's right. And so that's how, 9 years later, I'm still doing it myself. That kind of business model has its pros and cons, obviously. I utilize subcontractors for sure. But man, if I had a design and manage company, like, that was kind of like my dream, and my goal was to be a designer, but finding these qualified subs. But now, are you designing and building and finding the subs, or are you more just designing and handing it off to a contractor and they're doing, like, what does that relationship look like?
So I do two things. So I own Prolific Design and Manage. So if a client finds me on Google or Instagram, they'll reach out. I'll do the design for them. But they also pay for a package where we basically hold their hand throughout the process, where we do the design, we find the contractors, we pull the permits, we pretty much do everything for them. So the designs we have, we need contractors to build them. So we're always on the look and the hunt for contractors to build our jobs. So that's just another way for us to give back and see our jobs become actually live. And then, so if a contractor finds us and we design for the contractor, then we meet with their clients. We don't have our logo on our shirts or anything. We meet with their clients as their in-house designer. We sell the design, and then we sell the project, and then we just make sure those plans are very detailed so that they can go in the field and actually build it.
And then it's just handed off, and you might not even see the project.
Oh, so it depends on where the project is. So we design for contractors from California all the way to Florida. But we do some jobs, we will go out and just make sure everything is looking good, make sure everything is being built correct, because we build these relationships with these clients, and the last thing we want to do is just hand it off and disappear. So we're still in the mix. We're still making sure questions are getting answered, or any just any support is needed. We make sure we're still there from beginning to end.
Sure. So whether it's, so it could come through Prolific Design and Manage as a client, and then you source a contractor. Or it could come from a contractor who's helping you with the service, looking like an in-house design program.
Correct.
Or in-house design provider. No. I love that. And I think a lot of guys just kind of like, that's why I was pumped to host a design lab yesterday, right? I think some people fumble through that design thing, or how am I going to handle design? Or, like, I love how you said some clients don't even think they need a design. So then guys will just go out and do that job. And then who knows all the problems that they deal with after they do stuff like that. So just giving them a resource because a lot of us are builders in this industry. Either we started out building, or that's what we love to do now. Not everyone in this industry is, technically like an artist like you and I are. They're builders. So when it comes to, like, what they know, they have to sell it with a design, but then they get stuck there. Oh, I got to teach myself a design thing, or I got to pay this in-house designer this much money or whatever. So I really think the concept you're onto fits with where we're going right now with the industry. I mean, people are subcontracting their crews right now. Like, why would you not subcontract your designer? You can be one person and subcontract everything. So I just really have seen your growth. I've been inspired by it. Seriously, just to seeing what you're doing for these contractors all over the country, literally. And then I'm an artist, man, and what you're putting out there is cool. It's good looking stuff. Like, maybe someday we can build something together, my man.
Yeah, no, we will for sure. And it is good, because I always say, the contractors, just hiring an in-house designer could be a lot, or hiring a salesperson could be a lot. And then with you running around in the field and making sure these jobs getting complete, whether you're in the field or just managing, it could be a lot. And I know that because I was in that position. And a lot of things I talk about and a lot of things I try to teach is things that I went through, because pretty much landscaping is all I got. Designing is all I got. So if I wasn't doing landscaping, I don't know what I would be doing. But whatever I would be doing, I would be like 100% committed. So I pretty much wake up, think design and landscape, in church, of course, and back to sleep. So just over the time, I studied the craft. That's why I feel like I can grow so fast, because I'm just super locked in. So everything I learned, everything that didn't work and did work, I'm able to get back. So just with me teaching the guys that, you know, you can have a designer, we act as a designer and a salesperson to someone who's maybe doing maybe $200K a year or $100K a year. You know, they maybe can't bring in a salesperson or a designer, but this is something that can really take their company to the next level. Or even guys who's doing 5 to 10 million, we design and we sell for them. We just become an asset to the company. But one thing I wanted to ask you, just to switch gears for a bit.
I was going to say, now let's just get to know each other, my man.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, I know a lot of guys. So like me, just to give you a bit of background on myself, before I jumped into the industry and designing and stuff, I would say I had a totally 360 lifestyle. So, you know, my background was, you know, running around with my friends and, you know, being in the streets and stuff like that. So I'm really brought up on like loyalty, family, and, you know, just togetherness and realness. So when I got into the industry, pretty much, I know a lot of people say it's business, but a lot of things are personal for me. So I always say it's personal, it's not business. You know what I'm saying? So I
take too much personal. It's hard for me to separate them. So you're preaching to the choir.
So I try to, everything for me is personal. So all my relationships are personal. I don't want a business relationship where, you know, if I can't do something for you no more, then now, like where I'm from, we have to see things before it happen, or it could, you know, cost you your life. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I know I could read people really good, and I really get from you that you're really genuine. You know, you love the craft, you love the people, and so that's what really drew me to you. And I'm not around a lot of people, so people like you, people like Cruz, and just the guys I'm around, they super genuine. So that really drew me to you. So I just want to tell you, I'm just proud of everything you came from, everything you built, and that the fact that you're giving to these guys. You know, I hope they just don't take it for granted, and that it takes a lot to even build a studio for these guys and, you know, put hours into the craft, you know, when you could be doing something totally different. So that just, you know, show where your heart is. And
thank you so much. You had some questions for me?
Yeah. So when you took that, when you built that first job, I know everybody saw the helicopter pad job with the pool, you know, your nice big job. When that client reached out to you to come to that project, did you feel like you was ready for that? Because a lot of guys, they want to become this person, right? And they may not know where they're going, but I feel like in life you have to know where you're going in order to see the opportunities that come and to step into those opportunities, because you know it could take you to the next level. But a lot of guys, they don't step into these opportunities because they feel like they're not ready or it's too big for them. So did you feel like you were ready when you stepped into that process on flying out to meet with that client?
I guess I got to think about that a little bit, because I feel yes, I was ready, and that's because I put in 17 years already in this trade. You know, I worked for 8 different landscape companies. Just like I said yesterday, I've held every title in the book. Like, I have a lot of experience. So just like being a one-man band and taking on any job, when I sign a 6-figure job, I plan on building it myself. And if I pick up some subs along the way or some college kids who can carry brick, great. But I'm going in with the mindset that if I have to build this whole entire job by myself, I'll do it. That's fine. That's the world I came from. I guess I always will be a field guy. That's why I feel like I try to hold that authenticity and that genuinism, is because lots of times I'm talking to other foremen or other project managers, and that's like really the roots of my career, right? Is just being a foreman in the field with the guys and then just killing it on craftsmanship. Like that's always been my thing, being an artist, but then a good and bad, a perfectionist, right? So I feel like, was I ready to take that on? Yes. Was it still scary and the biggest risk of my life? Yes. So it's like I had to really ask myself, was I ready? Like you said, yes, I was ready, but I also knew it was a really big risk. And you know this too. It's like with really big risks come really big rewards.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to remind myself throughout that process was, man, this is crazy. I feel like I'm nuts. Like, what am I doing? And then you step back and you're like, I might be onto something here, right? That's just how I felt about that project. And it literally changed my life. I mean, you hear the story, like I came back to Wisconsin Rapids from Knoxville, Tennessee with a portfolio like that. Only a certain type of clientele is calling me now.
Yeah.
100%. Like I'm getting only 6-figure jobs coming in because they've seen what I did there. And then, so it just propelled me. And then meeting the young guys there who inspired me to give back to the industry, and why you're sitting in the studios, and, why Luke and I teamed up to do this was because we were going to give back to the industry. And that came, that thought process came to fruition when I took that big risk. So was I ready? Yes, I think I was ready, but it was still a huge risk, man, to go down there, figure that job out by myself. But then knowing that big risks lead to big rewards. So now you get something else that could be risky in your life, and you're just like, is there something waiting on the other side of this?
Welcome to Hardscape Mentor, the go-to training platform for learning real job site skills, anytime, anywhere. We've created 250 plus video lessons covering everything from design to build: patios, walls, inlays, flagstone, turf, resin sand, and more. You can watch anytime, anywhere, from your phone, tablet, or computer. Train yourself or your entire crew. Elite members also get access to our private Facebook group and monthly mastermind calls, where we talk through real projects, answer questions, and learn from each other. If you're serious about building better projects and growing your business, Hardscape Mentor is the resource to help you do it. Start learning today at hardscapementor.com.
Yeah, I always tell guys, like, you got to take that risk, make sure it's a calculated risk, but also.
And that's why I say, I can call it calculated, was because of my experience.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's why I could say I could do anything. I feel like I could build anything. So it's like, I was a calculated risk. I'm going to go and pull this off. If I have to build this whole thing by myself, I will. Now that's insanity. I would have been there for years and years and years, but to meet those other young guys off of Instagram and pull them in there to help me out. And even the guys I took down from Wisconsin, the first trip, like it was amazing opportunity. And I had help and support, but I was the leader. I was the experienced guy, and I was running the show, but in big projects, you do need help. So.
Yeah. When you were younger, how did you find this industry, when you first started, and just getting into like designing a building or at your like previous jobs and things like that? Like, how did you get into it, and what were you doing before that?
Yeah. So, I was like the number one party guy in college. I'll just say that. So it's like we all have these paths, right? Like if I could make a living living in a big party house in La Crosse, Wisconsin, that's what I was going to do. And then all my friends who I was living there with, they graduated college, and I was still going to tech school, trying to be on the basketball team, not going to class, partying all the time. And all my buddies, we moved. There was senior year, they all moved away. I'm like, where y'all going, man? I thought we were hanging out. They're like, we got real jobs, we're leaving. So that's when I knew I had to start looking for a job. I wasn't making it in school. I wasn't doing the classroom thing. So I went through multiple jobs, like random jobs in college. But I think my first initial thing into this industry was I started mowing grass. Just like a lot of us do, right?
Yeah.
I mowed for a school district. So we started at this grade school, we mowed this grade school, this junior high, this one at the high school, and then we started back again the next week, and we mowed all the schools in the city, right? That was so when I'm driving to these schools looking at stuff, I start to notice landscape companies like dump trucks hauling skidsters, and like I would drive by this country club all the time, and there was always these dump trucks lined up along the side of the street with this name on them, Markren Landscape Group. I'm like, because it's like when you get into grass mowing, then people call you a landscaper, like, or whatever else. So it's like, what is this landscaping stuff? So I seen these big trucks and parked at these fancy homes all the time. I'm like, what are those landscapers doing at that fancy home? So I applied for this company. It's so funny because I went there in my work truck, in my work clothes from the other company I worked for. Like on my break, I went and applied for this landscape construction company, basically is what it was. So I was 20 years old, year one, the first landscape construction company I found. They started me out as a landscape laborer, but I was working with 2 or 3 guys who had 15 years experience, and it was their passion. It was their pride. Like when it came down to a cut, they're like, this is how you do the cut, Dan. And it took like 20 minutes to get these miters to line up. I'm just like, whoa, this is pretty cool. And I've always been a detail oriented guy. So these guys were just like really passionate. They loved what they were doing. And I was a landscape laborer. I had a summer job, but it's like, am I still making a living? Am I still making a living here? My buddies went to go get jobs. But there's a guy working there with all this experience his wife was a stay-at-home mom, and he had 4 kids. I'm like, dang, Joe is only a foreman here, and his wife doesn't work, and he has 4 kids. Maybe I could be a foreman. This will be my gig, right? So by the end of that first year at that construction company, that landscape construction company, I became a foreman. Put in my first walkway, probably at 20 years old, super scared, super nervous, right? I always was calling my project supervisor out. Is this okay? Is this okay? Year 1 and 2, he would make fun of me because I called him 20, 30 times a day. And then he'd run out to my site and check because they were picky and I was picky. And I just wanted to make sure everything lined up. So that's how I got brought into it, was by guys who I feel had a passion, and they just made me aware that it could be a career. And then I was a foreman for that company for 8 years. I thought I made it, man. I had my name on the side of the truck. It's like, boom, I made it. I'm a landscape foreman. Well, then my wife, she graduated college. She moved back to our hometown. So we both moved back to our hometown 8 years after she graduated college. She was a nurse in La Crosse. We had the opportunity to move back to our hometown. I was working at this company for 8 years. So I was like, well, I'll go back to my hometown and see what I can do there. I worked for 8 different landscape companies because I could never find that one, like the one I started at in La Crosse. These guys killed it in craftsmanship. They had systems down. Everyone was happy. It was just a machine that just put together these huge hardscapes in this golf course development. I moved back. I was like, started at this company. I always had the most experience. I was always the pickiest, and it just never made it. Okay, I'll go try somewhere else. So I just did that a bunch of times, trying to find that company I left in La Crosse. And then I finally found a job at this company. I was a foreman for them, so I'm still a foreman. Got another foreman gig. 3 years into that company asked me if I could, we got laid off in the wintertime. They're like, hey, Dan, would you like to help us design and sell this winter? We see that when you're out in the field building these jobs, you can ad lib and change the design a little bit and keep the project moving along. Like maybe there's something for you in the office this next winter. So I was like, sure. I was like, man, so now 12 years later, only in the field, never drawing, I sit down and they're like, here, draw this for us with a pencil and paper, and start the other designer help us design. I'm like, dang, I am drawing now again, right? So I killed that opportunity. I learned SketchUp that whole winter long. So for 5 years, I was a hardscape designer at that company. So 12 years in the field, then I was 5 years in the office. And when I was in the field, everyone's like, all the guys who were above me who weren't on their own, they always said they didn't want to go on their own because they didn't want to do the paperwork. So all these guys were like top hardscape construction foremen. Everyone's like, why don't you go on your own? Like the kids who would like, why aren't you on your own? They'd always, I don't want to do paperwork. So I got that thought in my head when the whole time I was in the field was like, well, I don't want to do paperwork either. I'm not starting my own business. But then I got the design job. So then I started doing paperwork. I started putting bids together. I started, putting, templates together for the design stuff. And I started to learn computers again. So that company gave me the opportunity to see what I was really going to do in this industry. And that was going to be a designer again. So I'll speed up the story a little bit. Something happened at that company. We just had a falling out a little bit. They were doing a couple $1 million a year in commercial construction. And my little residential design department was not the priority at that company. So I decided to go across the street and try and get a job at the competition to kind of like, rub it in their face or whatever else. So I went across the street and they're like, yeah, Dan, we see you're a designer over there. We see what you've been doing with them. But to work for us, you got to be a foreman first and get to know our guys. I've already been a designer for 5 years. My whole life changed. Now I'm working year round. Like I had to go back to be a foreman for you guys. Okay, sure. Went back to be a foreman for them. Then they didn't make me a designer that winter. They laid me off because it was snowing out, right? So I'm just like, you guys said I was going to be a designer. So then Fast forward, that winter, one of my good friends in town is an audio video specialist. He like works on like high-end houses, making them like smart homes. Like he, wires your whole house to your iPad and stuff like that. So he's working with high-end clientele. And he gets this lead from one of his clients where she's going to put in a poolscape and Paul's going to do all the lighting and speakers and everything around the pool. She knows that. But Paul's like, and he's like, I know you were a designer for Revi. He's like, I have a client who needs something drawn for him. I'm like, yeah, I would draw something for him. So I drew something up for this lady and I was like, who's she going to have build it, Paul? And he's like, she doesn't know who she's going to have build it. So I was like, I wonder if she'd let me put together a bid for her. Mm-hmm. So I put together a bid for this lady. I wasn't even in business yet, but I started my business when she didn't have anyone to build it. So I was laid off. I got this lead for this design. I put together a $100,000 proposal. Like, here's the design. And if Paul suggested I give you a design, here's a design. And if you want someone to build it, it would probably cost about this much. It's like, oh, I'll have you build it. Oh, okay.
Wow.
So I started Preston Hardscape Design. Mm-hmm. I created my LLC, came with my logo, did everything. And this is where the story relates to yours. I signed this big poolscape. It gets to be April, May. We're going to start the job. The poolscape goes in. I found some subcontractors. Family members said, I know some landscapers in this other city. Go talk to them. So I went and talked to these guys. They seemed like they knew what they were talking about. Yeah, we do hardscaping. Cool. I got this project. Would you guys want to be my subcontractors? I designed it. Yep. So they start building a project, and I would go out there in the afternoons and check on them and kind of just let them do their thing, see if this is really going to work out. And we were using Unilock Courtstone and like Unilock Brussels and like Unilock Beacon Hill. I had 3 different sizes of pavers. I just get crazy when I design, right? I don't care what the thickness is. I'm just putting the shapes and colors in there, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd show up after work I'd show up after they were working all day, and they laid the pavers on the same bedding layer so they weren't even. Just like, you have to adjust the bedding layer underneath the thinner ones and just, I'm saying that the top has to be level. Yeah. And so I'd show up, they laid 500, 600 square feet, and then a border, and it's all up and down because the pavers are different thicknesses. I'm like, guys, you got to get these bedding layers so the top level surface. And this guy's comment was, well, anybody can pick apart anybody's work. I'm like, no, I'm not picking apart your work. Right. I'm literally telling you how it has to be. Mm-hmm. Showed up the next day, something else was wrong. Showed up the next day, I couldn't take it anymore. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to get on my knees. I'm going to finish this job. So my first job went from $100,000 to $220,000. And it took me from June until October, and I built it by myself.
Yeah.
100%. I laid 2,400 square feet of brick. I cut every border in. I did everything. So that's when I'm just like, screw it. You guys can't build my design. I'm just going to go back on my knees and do it. My whole vision was to be just like what you're doing. That's why it's so inspiring. My whole vision was to be, I'm just going to draw. That's what I love to do. I'll get other dudes to put in the ground. Mm-hmm. Stuff I draw is too crazy, man.
Yeah, it is.
They got to have 20 years of experience to even put it in.
Yeah, and it's super detailed. Like, I can see the craftsmanship. But just to like go back on your story, and just for whoever's watching and listening to this, like, you went through ups and downs, and you went through a journey, and that journey is needed to become where you are today. And a lot of people would give up. Did you ever think about like just switching industries or getting into something else, or just quitting?
So I probably skipped over a few things in that story just to speed it up. But when I first moved back to my hometown, I had my commercial driver's license because we were driving like dump trucks, hauling skid steers and stuff. So I had my commercial driver's license. So we moved back to my hometown. My wife got a job as a nurse automatically. I took my commercial driver's license and I started driving semi for Coca-Cola.
Okay.
For 1 month. And I'm driving by these job sites in my Coca-Cola semi, and I'm just like, that's where I belong. I drive by another new house being built, and I'm like, no, that's where I belong. Like, I belong on job sites, right? Mm-hmm. So then that's when I quit that Coca-Cola job, and that's when my 8 companies later came into play, right? Yeah. I'm going to go find a landscape design and build company, and I never could. So giving up on it, I mean, throughout those 12 years, lots of times I was kicking myself for not finishing college. My line was always like, with a shovel, should have finished college, right? Mm-hmm. And beat myself up. And then you go to places with your wife at fancy dinner at the hospital or something, and everyone's like, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a landscaper. That was tough to say sometimes. Because they would say, "Oh, I got this brown spot in my lawn. Can you do anything to help me with that?"
Yeah, like what?
So I had to really explain what I do as a landscaper. It's like, no, I build patios and stuff, right?
I got a couple of plants I need planted.
Yeah.
They come out. I like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You would not do that, ma'am.
But just I didn't like to even say I was a landscaper for half of my career. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
And now I freaking own the fact that I'm a hardscape artist, and a hardscape teacher and educator. But yeah, I think I love how you said the trials and the tribulations and the ups and downs, just like you've experienced in your life, they mold who you are, man. They mold who you are. The things you got to go through give you these different perspectives on life, right? What's real, what's important, what doesn't matter anymore. So yeah, you have to experience ups and downs. That's why, as much as I love these young 20-year-olds coming into the business, I just really want to open their mind up to you. Like, you're going to go through some stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to go through some stuff. I'm super proud of you guys to start your business at 20 years old, but be prepared.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people see people like you, or they see people who are in this industry and feel like they have a solid foundation and a structure, but it takes time to build that foundation and that structure. And everyone wants to emulate, even myself. And I learned this the hard way. So everything I'm seeing, like, I learned it like through experience. So I saw these big jobs and I said, okay, that's where the money is. Let me sell these big jobs. My first I went from $10,000 to $15,000 jobs to a $200,000 job. And if I didn't meet people along the way and make these connections, I probably would be one of those guys who's on the news about something crazy happening. But luckily, I had the guys around me who could help me build it. But that just let me know that. Like, I love listening to like Nipsey Hussle. Like, he always say, like, it's a marathon. Building your business is a journey, and it's a marathon. Every year isn't going to be I want to do 1 million this year. I want to build 2 million this year. You will have years where you're focusing on the client experience and your processes and your systems, and just making sure your communication is great with the client, or just making sure the crews are structured and running well. Those things come first before we start trying to be profitable and making all this money. But it's important to emulate the process as well before we get to try to emulate the finished product. So that's a lot of guys who are going through things, and when you're looking on Instagram and Facebook, you don't see a lot of people talking about what it took to get there, and the failures, and not making money on a job, or just all the negative things. But those things are normal. Those things are what comes with being in business. And it's the journey. It's and
the process.
Yeah, and it's a process.
And the process. And so that's something I've learned to do. And listening to Nipsey Hussle as well, and these other guys, like, owning the process, right? Loving the process. Like, that's what it's going to be your whole life, is a process. When is it ever a finished product that you can just sit back, right? So it's like, that's what I just went off on these like 4 or 5 19 or 20-year-olds standing in front of me yesterday. I was like, I'm super proud of you. You all are in business for yourself today, but you need to surround yourself with a whole bunch of people. And I'm glad you said that. Like, you couldn't have took on that $200,000 job, right? So I'm like, you need to surround yourself with a whole bunch of people who have made mistakes and learn from their mistakes, right? You're only 20 years old. You have a long way to go, and it's not going to be fast. You're not going to do what you want to do in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But guess what? By the time you're 30 and you've been into this for 10 years, you're way ahead of everyone else. And you're going to be doing just fine. Exactly. But the number one thing I can tell you, boys, is to surround yourself with guys like myself and guys like Craig, who have industry experience, who have failed in the past, and who can share their failures with you, so you don't have to go through the same failures, right? Exactly. So you can do it when you're 20. You just got to have a big network.
They see the shine, but they don't see the pressure. Every move I make is my greatest treasure. Hardscape Mentor show me how to pave the way. Stacking up the wins for a brighter day. We level up, we level up. That's right. Taking everything, fill the cup. We build it smarter, we build it smarter.